Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The boy counted them again. 1. The first coin was slightly bent along the edge, its surface scratched from years of use. A faded insignia flickered when it caught the light. Proof it had passed through too many hands to remember. 2. The second coin pulsed faintly, its embedded circuit still strong. It hummed softly, like it had more life left in it than the boy holding it. 3. The last coin was the smallest, old, nearly obsolete. It took a second longer than the others to glow when he tilted it toward the ceiling lights. He swallowed. 3 coins. He had counted them on the floor of his room. He had counted them on the stairwell outside, while the air recycler coughed stale oxygen into the corridor. He had counted them in the elevator that sometimes stopped between levels for no reason at all. And now, he counted them again, standing at the entrance of the exchange. The doors hissed open with a soft mechanical sigh, like the building itself was tired of being alive. Inside, everything gleamed. Clean floors, polished walls, light panels that never flickered. The air even smelled different, filtered, balanced, expensive. Leo hesitated just inside the doorway. People moved through the space with purpose. Some wore sleek uniforms, others long coats lined with smart fabric. None of them looked like him. No one clutched coins like they might disappear. A hovering sign rotated slowly above the central hall. Human Resource Exchange, verified, licensed, guaranteed. Below it, smaller text scrolled. Companions, specialists, caretakers, guardians. Leo's fingers tightened. Guardians. That was close enough. He stepped forward. The counter stretched longer than he expected. A seamless surface of dark glass that reflected everything and nothing at the same time. Behind it stood a man in a gray uniform, perfectly pressed, perfectly still. He didn't look up when Leo approached. "State your request," the clerk said, voice calm and rehearsed. Leo placed the coins on the counter. They made a soft, uneven clink. The clerk's eyes flickered downward for half a second, just enough to register them, before returning to his console. "State your request," he repeated. Leo swallowed. I want to buy something." "What category?" Leo glanced up at the massive display behind the clerk. Rows of suspended capsules floated in vertical columns, each one softly illuminated. Inside them were people, real people, sleeping or waiting or paused in some in-between state. Each capsule had a label. Engineer, 120 credits. Security Officer, 95 credits. Medical Technician, 140 credits. Further down, another section. Companion, 60 credits. Caretaker, 75 credits. Guardian, 110 credits. Leo's heart thumped. And then, near the far end, a smaller section, less prominent, dimmer lighting, parental units. He pointed. "That one," he said. The clerk finally looked at him fully. "You are requesting a parental unit?" he asked. Leo nodded quickly. "Yes, a dad." The word felt strange in his mouth. Heavy, important. The clerk studied him for a moment, not with curiosity, but with calculation. "Do you have a registered household?" he asked. "No." "Guardian authorization?" Leo shook his head. "Credit history?" "No." The clerk's gaze dropped again to the coins. Silence stretched. "Your total balance," the clerk said, "is 3 coins." Leo nodded. "Yes, 3 coins," the clerk repeated, as if confirming a system error. "That amount does not meet the minimum requirement for any parental unit." Leo leaned forward slightly. "But I don't need a high-level one," he said quickly. "I don't need skills or certifications. I just need—" He stopped. The words caught somewhere between his chest and his throat. The clerk waited. "Someone who stays." Leo finished quietly. The hum of facility seemed louder all of a sudden. The clerk's expression didn't change. "Parental units are priced according to functionality, emotional range, and stability," he said. "Even the lowest tier exceeds your available funds." Leo looked back at the capsules. Inside one, a man slept with his arms folded, expression calm. In another, someone smiled faintly, as if dreaming of something better. They look normal, Leo said. They are calibrated, the clerk corrected. They meet expectations. Leo frowned. What happens if they don't? The clerk didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tapped the counter. A holographic panel flickered to life between them, displaying lines of data, categories, and prices. Units that fail to meet standards are removed from primary inventory, he said. Removed where? The clerk hesitated. Just barely. Storage. Leo's eyes sharpened. Can I see them? No. Why not? Because they're not for sale. Leo looked down at his coins again. They suddenly felt smaller. What if I don't need perfect? He asked. The clerk's gaze hardened slightly. Imperfection is precisely what disqualifies them. Leo picked up the smallest coin and rolled it between his fingers. When my dad left, he said quietly, almost to himself, he said he'd come back when things got better. The clerk said nothing. Leo continued, voice steadier now. I don't need better. I just need not gone. The words hung in the air. For the first time, the clerk's expression shifted. Not sympathy, not quite, but something less mechanical. He looked past Leo, toward the dimmer section of the facility, then back at the boy. 3 coins, the clerk said slowly. Will not buy you what you are asking for. Leo nodded. I know. A pause. Then, but is there anything, Leo asked, lifting his gaze, that I can buy? The question lingered longer than it should have. The system didn't have an immediate answer. Neither did the clerk. And for a moment, in a place where everything had a price, uncertainty flickered, small, quiet, but real. The clerk didn't speak right away. He stood still behind the counter, fingers resting lightly against a glass surface, eyes unfocused, as if running through a list of protocols, permissions, and consequences. Leo waited. People moved around them. Transactions continued. Credits transferred, lives assigned and reassigned. No one paid attention to the boy with 3 coins. Finally, the clerk exhaled, soft, controlled. Follow me, he said. They didn't go through the main hall. Instead, the clerk stepped out from behind the counter and led Leo toward a narrow corridor tucked between 2 display walls. The lighting shifted immediately, brighter, harsher, less welcoming. A sign flickered overhead. Authorized personnel only. The clerk tapped the panel. The door slid open with a reluctant hiss. Leo hesitated only a second before stepping inside. The air changed first. It was colder, thinner, not unbreathable, but stripped of the polished comfort of the front hall. The hum of machinery was louder here, less refined. Something deeper, older. The corridor stretched long and dim, lined with exposed conduits and maintenance panels. Light strips flickered intermittently, casting uneven shadows that moved as they walked. Stay close, the clerk said. Leo did. They passed sealed doors with faded labels. Recalibration. Memory purge. Emotional reset. Leo glanced at each one, his chest tightening slightly. What happens in there? He asked. Corrections, the clerk replied. Leo didn't ask more. At the end of the corridor stood a heavier door, thicker, reinforced, with warning text barely visible beneath layers of wear. The clerk paused. You are not authorized to be here, he said, not looking at Leo. Leo nodded. Okay. The clerk pressed his hand to the scanner. The door opened. The back room was different, not broken exactly, but forgotten. Rows of capsules filled the space like in the front hall, but these weren't polished or perfectly aligned. Some leaned slightly off-center. Others flickered or dimmed unevenly. A few were completely dark. Dust floated in the air, drifting slowly in the low gravity. It sparkled faintly when it passed through the scattered light. Leo stepped inside, his eyes wide. These are them, he whispered. Yes, the clerk said. Defective inventory. Leo walked forward slowly. The first capsule he approached had a cracked corner, a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the transparent surface. Inside, a woman sat upright, eyes open but unfocused, staring at something that wasn't there. What's wrong with her? Leo asked. Looping memory. The clerk said. She repeats the same moment continuously. Does not respond to new stimuli. Leo watched her for a second longer. She looked sad. She does not experience sadness as you understand it. Leo frowned but didn't argue. He moved on. Another capsule emitted a faint, irregular beep. Inside, a man lay curled on his side, lips moving slightly. Leo leaned closer. "Did you eat?" the man murmured. "You have to eat first." Leo blinked. "He's talking." Residual behavior patterns, the clerk said. Fragmented. Unstable. Who is he talking to? The clerk didn't answer. They walked deeper. Some capsules were empty, their displays flashing error codes. Data loss, irrecoverable. Personality matrix failure. Bonding protocol corrupted. Leo stopped in front of one that was completely dark. No light, no display, no movement. "What about this one?" he asked. "Decommissioned," the clerk said. "No longer functional." Leo stared at the empty capsule. "Did someone buy them before?" The clerk hesitated. "Yes." "And then they brought them back?" "Yes." Leo's fingers curled slightly. "Why?" The clerk's voice was quieter now. They didn't meet expectations. Leo turned slowly, looking across the room. There were so many of them. Not perfect, not polished, not wanted. "They're still people," he said. The clerk didn't respond. Leo kept walking. His steps slowed as he reached the far corner of the room, where the lighting was weakest. Only one functioning panel cast a faint glow across a small cluster of capsules. One of them flickered unevenly, light struggling to stay alive. Leo stopped. Inside was a man. He didn't look broken. Older than the others. Maybe. Lines on his face. Hands that looked like they had done real work, not just simulated tasks. His expression was calm. Not empty. Not looping. Just resting. Leo stepped closer. "What's wrong with him?" he asked softly. The clerk moved beside him and checked the panel. It sputtered, glitching before stabilizing just enough to display fragmented text. Unit 47D. Status, unstable. Error, memory fragmentation. Error, emotional overflow. Flag, non-compliant bonding. The clerk read it silently, then spoke. "He forms attachments beyond assigned parameters," he said. "Fails to release previous dependents. Attempts to return to them." Leo blinked. "That's bad." "Yes." "Why?" "Because he cannot be reassigned properly. He resists resets. Retains emotional imprints." Leo looked back at the man in the capsule. He remembers them? Not clearly, but enough to interfere with function. Leo pressed his hand lightly against the glass. The surface was cold. "So he doesn't forget people?" Leo asked. The clerk's jaw tightened slightly. "No," he said. Leo was quiet for a moment. Then, "That sounds like what a dad is supposed to do." The clerk didn't reply. The capsule flickered again. For just a second, the man inside shifted. Barely. A small movement, like a breath changing direction. Leo's heart skipped. He moved. Leo whispered. "Residual motor activity," the clerk said quickly. "Irrelevant." But Leo didn't step back. He leaned closer. "Can he hear me?" "No." "Can he wake up?" The clerk paused. "Yes." Leo turned to him. "How much?" The clerk didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked around the room, the dim lights, the broken capsules, the inventory no one wanted. Then back at the boy. "Units in this section are not listed for sale," he said. Leo held out his hand. 3 coins. They looked even smaller here. "I don't need listed," he said. "I just need him." The silence stretched longer this time, long enough that even the machine seemed to pause. The clerk looked at the coins, then at Unit 47D, then at Leo. "He will not function properly," the clerk said. "That's okay." "He may forget things." "That's okay." "He may not follow instructions." Leo hesitated, then nodded. "That's okay, too." The clerk studied him carefully. "You do not understand what you are asking for." Leo met his gaze. "I do." A beat, then quietly, 3 coins. Leo asked. The system had no category for this. No pricing model. No guideline. Just a boy. And something broken that maybe wasn't. The clerk exhaled slowly. 3 coins, he said. The clerk didn't ask for confirmation. Maybe because there was nothing in the system to confirm. Maybe because if he paused any longer, he would change his mind. He reached toward the control panel beside the capsule. Once activated, he said, voice returning to its usual measured tone, the unit cannot be returned to inventory. Leo tightened his grip on the edge of the capsule. I'm not bringing him back. The clerk glanced at him, just briefly, then pressed his hand against the scanner. The machine responded slowly, not like the others. Where front hall capsules opened with smooth, efficient precision, this one hesitated, its internal systems waking in uneven pulses. A low hum began, stuttering at first, then stabilizing. Light flickered along the edges of the capsule. Dim, bright, dim again. The display glitched. Initializing. Error. Retrying. Stable? A soft hiss escaped from the seams. Cold vapor spilled out, curling downward and spreading across the floor like a living thing. It wrapped around Leo's shoes, then drifted past him into the shadows. Leo didn't move. Inside, the man's chest rose, slow, uncertain. Then again, the first real breath. The capsule unlocked with a dull click, but it didn't open. The clerk frowned slightly and tapped the panel again. Manual override, he muttered. The front casing shifted, then slid open with a grinding sound that echoed too loudly in the quiet room. The man inside stirred. Not just a reflex this time. Something deeper. His fingers twitched. His head turned slightly to one side. And then his eyes opened. They weren't sharp at first. Clouded. Searching. Trying to remember how to see. The light in the room seemed too harsh for him. He blinked slowly, as if each movement required effort, like lifting something heavy he couldn't quite name. Where, he whispered, his voice was rough and used. The word faded before it finished. Leo stepped closer, without realizing it. I'm here, he said quickly. The man's gaze shifted. It didn't lock onto Leo immediately. It drifted, unfocused, passing over him like he was just another shape in the room. Then it stopped, and something clicked. Not memory, not recognition, but alignment. The man frowned slightly, like he was trying to solve something that didn't have words. Are you? He began, then stopped. Leo waited. The silence stretched. The man's breathing steadied. His eyes cleared just enough. Are you alone? He asked. The question hit harder than anything else had. Leo nodded. Yes. No hesitation. No pretending. Just truth. The man looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he pushed himself upright. It wasn't graceful. His movements were stiff, uncoordinated, like his body remembered how to move, but not smoothly. He braced a hand against the edge of the capsule, wincing slightly as he shifted his weight forward. The clerk stepped forward instinctively. Careful, he said. Motor systems may be... I'm okay, the man said. He wasn't, but he stood anyway. For a moment, he just stood there, barefoot on the cold floor, wrapped in thin activation fabric, breathing air that felt new and old at the same time. His eyes moved across the room. The broken capsules, the flickering lights, the dust drifting slowly around them. Then back to Leo. Always back to Leo. This place, he murmured. I've been here before. The clerk crossed his arms. You've been here many times. The man flinched slightly at that, but didn't ask more. Instead, he crouched down, slowly, carefully, until he was at Leo's level. Up close, he looked tired, not just physically, like something inside him had been stretched too far, too many times. But his eyes, they were steady now, focused. What's your name? He asked. Leo. The man repeated it quietly. Leo. Like he was testing how it felt. Then, almost unconsciously, he smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Good name, he said. Leo hesitated, then asked a question that had been sitting in his chest since the capsule started opening. Do you remember anything? The man tilted his head slightly, his brow furrowed. Fragments, he said after a moment. Not clear, not complete. Like what? The man looked away briefly, searching inward. Hands, he said slowly. Small ones, holding mine. Leo's breath caught. Voices, The man continued, calling me something. I don't remember what. The clerk shifted uncomfortably behind them. Residual memory artifacts, he said. They will degrade over time. The man ignored him. He looked back at Leo. But this, he said quietly, this feels familiar. Leo blinked. What does? The man hesitated, then reached out, not quickly, not suddenly, carefully, giving Leo time to move away if he wanted to. But Leo didn't. The man's hand rested lightly on Leo's shoulder. Warm, steady. This, he repeated. Leo swallowed. You don't even know me. The man's expression softened. I know enough. How? A small pause. Then, you said you're alone, the man said. And that's not something that should stay true. Leo's grip tightened on his coins, still in his hand, like he hadn't fully let go of the moment yet. Even if I only had 3 coins, he asked. The man glanced down at them, then back at Leo, and something almost like confusion crossed his face. Is that what I cost? He asked. Leo nodded slowly. The man exhaled, not disappointed, not offended, just thoughtful. That's not very much, he said. Leo's chest tightened. I know. A beat. Then the man shook his head slightly. No, he said. That's not what I meant. He shifted closer. That's not what you paid, he said quietly. That's just what they charged. Behind them, the clerk looked away. The man stood up again, a little steadier this time. He offered his hand, not as a command, not as a function, but as a choice. Leo looked at it, then took it. The system behind them updated silently. Unit 47D, status, active, assignment, unregistered, bonding protocol, engage, unauthorized. An error flickered briefly across the screen, then disappeared, as if the system itself wasn't quite sure what to do with it. Do you have a place to go? The man asked. Leo nodded. Yes. Good, the man said. He squeezed Leo's hand gently. Then let's go there. They started toward the door. The clerk didn't stop them, didn't say anything, just watched as they walked out of the room, past the broken capsules, past the dim lights, past everything that had been discarded. At the threshold, the man paused. He looked back once, at the room, at the rows of people no one wanted. Something unreadable crossed his face. Then he turned away and followed Leo out. The doors to the exchange closed behind them with a soft, final hiss. The sound lingered longer than it should have. Leo didn't look back. The man did, just for a moment. His eyes traced the edges of the building, the clean lines, the polished surface, the glowing signage that promised certainty, guarantees, and value. Then his gaze dropped to Leo's hand in his. Small, warm, real. Okay, he said quietly, almost to himself, and turned away. Outside, the colony breathed differently. The air wasn't as clean. It carried the faint metallic tang of recycled systems pushed past their limits. Lights flickered in uneven patterns. Somewhere in the distance, a generator coughed, then steadied. Life here wasn't calibrated. It was improvised. Walkways stretched between structures bolted into the asteroid surface. Cables running like veins along every edge. Neon signs buzzed faintly, advertising things no one truly needed, but everyone somehow depended on. Leo stepped onto the walkway with confidence, like he belonged here, because he did. The man followed, his movements slower, not from weakness now, but from attention. He watched everything, the people passing by, the distant hum of ships docking and departing, the way Leo navigated around loose panels and uneven flooring without even thinking. You've been here a while, the man said. Leo shrugged. Long enough. How long is that? Leo hesitated. Since my dad left. The man nodded. He didn't ask when. They walked in silence for a bit. Not uncomfortable. Just new. The kind of quiet where both people are figuring out how to exist next to each other. A group of workers passed them, carrying oxygen canisters between shifts. One of them glanced at the man, then at Leo, then away again. No one stopped them. No one questioned it. Out here, things didn't have to make sense to be accepted. Are you cold? The man asked suddenly. Leo blinked. No. The man frowned slightly, then pulled at the thin activation fabric he was wearing. I might be, he admitted. Leo looked at him, really looked this time. Barefoot, underdressed, new. We'll fix that, Leo said. The man smiled faintly. Okay. They turned down a narrower passage, one that dipped slightly lower into the colony structure. The lights here were dimmer, some completely out. The air was warmer, but heavier. This way, Leo said. The man followed without hesitation. Sir, Leo said after a while. The man chuckled softly. You don't have to call me that. Leo glanced up at him. I don't know what else to call you. The man considered that. They stepped over a loose panel in the floor. I don't remember my name, he admitted. Leo stopped walking. Not at all. The man shook his head. Not clearly. There's something there, but it's broken. Leo looked down for a second. Do you want a new one? The man tilted his head. Maybe, he said, but names matter. I think I should remember it if I can. Leo nodded slowly. Okay. They stood there for a moment. Then, what should I call you until then? Leo asked. The man thought about it, then shrugged just slightly. We can figure out together. Leo smiled. Okay. They reached the housing cluster. It wasn't much. A series of small, stacked units welded together over time, each one slightly different depending on who had patched or expanded it. Some doors were reinforced. Others barely closed. Leo led him to one near the edge. This is mine, he said. The door slid open with a reluctant grind. Inside, the room was small. One bed pushed against the wall. A narrow table with scattered parts and tools. A flickering screen mounted above it. A single chair. A heater unit sat in the corner, its light blinking irregularly. It works sometimes, Leo said, nodding toward it. The man stepped inside slowly, not judging, just taking it in. It's good, he said. Leo blinked. Really? The man nodded. It's yours, he said. That makes it good. Leo set his coins down on the table. For the first time since entering the exchange, he let go of them. They didn't feel as heavy anymore. The man walked around the room, brushing his fingers lightly against the walls, the table, the chair, like he was mapping it, learning it. Then he stopped near the bed. Where do I sleep? He asked. Leo hesitated. There's only one bed. The man nodded. Then you take it. Leo shook his head immediately. No, you need it more. The man crouched down slightly so they were eye level again. We'll figure that out too, he said gently. Leo opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, because something about the way the man said it made it feel solved already. The heater clicked. Once. Twice. Then finally steadied into a low hum. Warm air began to push slowly into the room. Leo looked at it in surprise. It never works right away. The man glanced at it, then back at Leo. Maybe it's trying harder today. Leo smiled. A quiet settled over the room. Different from before. Not empty. Full. Leo sat on the edge of the bed. The man sat on the floor, leaning back against the wall like it was the most natural place to be. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then, are you going to stay? Leo asked. The question came out small. Careful. The man didn't answer right away. He looked at Leo. Really looked. Like he was memorizing him. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to. Yes, he said. Simple. Certain. No hesitation. Leo nodded. Once. That was enough. Outside, the colony continued its endless calculations. Oxygen levels, energy consumption, credit exchanges, survival odds. Inside the room, none of that mattered. Not right now. On the table, the 3 coins sat quietly. No longer a question. No longer a measure. Just something that had been traded for something far beyond its value. And somewhere deep within the system of the exchange, a line of data remained unresolved. Transaction recorded. Price, 3 coins. Outcome, undefined. An error, a small one, but growing. Because for the first time in a long time, something had been taken from the system that it couldn't properly account for. Not loss, not profit, something else. Leo lay down on the bed. The man stayed where he was, watching the room, listening to the steady hum of the heater, the faint sounds of the colony beyond the walls, guarding, without being told, without being programmed, just doing it. After a while, Leo's voice came softly through the dim light. "Hey!" The man looked up. "Yeah." A pause. Then, "I think I'm going to call you Dad." The man blinked. Something shifted in his expression. Deep, quiet, almost fragile. "Okay," he said. And this time, when he smiled, it didn't feel broken at all.